Hi Dara, how are you?
I'm doing great.
And where are we today?
We are at the Amelia Earhart Park, I
Hmm.
believe, right?
Yeah,
It's a beautiful park. It's very
it's a
big.
yeah, very beautiful, very big.
So, what do you want to talk about?
So today we will discuss a little bit about the systems that we have in place today and what would be a right system for doing everything. And in our first few podcasts, we discussed a little bit about how we need to work in every aspect of life using righteousness as the approach. And in today's topic, we will be discussing what is a righteous system and what are the problems with today's system, right? In today's system, we see a lot of inefficiencies across the board because a equality based system treats everyone as equal. And though it's the best system in today's day and time, and we have come a long way in terms of like overcoming all the inequalities of the past, be it the inequality of race, religion, color, whatever it is. But even this system has some inefficiencies in terms of lost feelings.
Can we go back to what we were saying with the equality system and why the equality system right now is not the best system?
Let's apply this in social media phenomena rather than in a day-to-day scenario.
Sure.
If you want to create a rating system, how will you model a rating system? Do you want to give equal votes for everyone, or do you want to give what would work the best? So today, if you see, we do it based on equal votes. Like if you have like button, right? Like the number of likes probably will determine how much people are interested in such solution.
Yeah.
That's an equality system.
Because everyone can like a video and it adds one like.
It adds one like. But the right system, if you are focusing on efficiency on this, and if you want to analyze efficiency on these aspects, likes aspect, then you can alter the system a little bit to make it even more efficient. If you give a score based on the righteousness of that person, how much you trust that person for his judgment on something, then you will get to even more accurate score. I'll give you an example, right? Like you have 5 friends and you want a product decision from 5 of those friends. And there are 2 people that you trust the most. There are 2 people you don't trust the most. One person is on and off. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he or she is not good, right? So who would you give the most preference for?
The most trustworthy one.
The most trustworthy ones, you give more weightage compared to the other ones. So the right system is often the one that scores everyone rather than in an equal way, giving the right score to the right person. I know it's a complex logic to apply in day to day life. That's why we resorted to the systems of equality for the comfort. But the problem with the system of equality, where everything is looked up as an average, at the best create an average society, average humanity. If you use the system of what is right, righteousness, it will create the best system, best society, society with the highest level of quality. Because there, the quality will be the focus. Imagine if you're rewarding everyone based on right for right and wrong for wrong. That means you are also creating an inspiration for the younger generations to do what is right. They will be focusing on improving their righteous score. That means they will be focusing on behaving in a detached way and judging everything in a detached way, which will ensure that they are peaceful from inside and they can bring peace and prosperity for people around them. That is the type of system we need to encourage. I know we have come a long way from the systems of inequality to equality, and the systems of inequality were too biased based on race, religion, color, and a lot of things. But the aspiration has to be even higher to create a highly efficient system and give right worth for right things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that in the past we had an inequality system, right? One where we were judged based on mostly physical attributes. But that system itself, the bare bones of that system, were actually correct because they didn't give everyone the same amount of voting power. But where it went wrong is they used the wrong attributes as the metrics.
Yep.
So rather than using things like race, religion, whatever, instead you should be using things like how trustworthy is this person, how pure is this person, how detached is this person.
If you see the system, the kingdoms from the past, if the king is attached to the role and the position, of course, he will fail at fulfilling his purpose. Let's say if king elects his successor in an attached way, then he's doing injustice to the entire kingdom. And you know what happens to such kingdoms? Things get worse and worse, and the entire kingdom has to suffer as a whole. So that is the bias we are referring over there. If the king is detached, and then if he does what is right, then that would be the best approach. And you can also look at this righteous system in our past kingdoms as well. The kingdoms that have been most peaceful and prosperous followed this system as well. They used to often have a council of ministers that are voted based on their righteousness. And then they advise the king based on those lines. And such kingdom will be always peaceful and prosperous. When there are excess of comforts, there are occasions where councils and kings gave into comforts and take decisions in a biased way, which led to the fall of those kingdoms as well. And we have seen that throughout the history.
Yes. So we've been going in this cycle. Sounds like.
Yeah, everything is cyclical.
Yeah.
Every time we have seen when we are barely surviving, we followed the principle of righteousness and we came to a position of comfort. And when we were in position of comfort, we always gave into attachments and bias, which led to destruction.
Yeah.
And then again, we started over from the survival point again.
Yeah.
And this cycle has been repeating throughout the history.
What is one way that we can start implementing or getting closer to a more righteous system as individuals? What's something that every person can do to get closer to this system?
So, as we discussed in our past podcast, one can create the third person perspective and use this as analysis for every action that they're making or for every judgment they're making. Let's say if they have to treat their children, are they treating them in a detached way? Ensure that. If they are working towards a purpose, are they working towards that purpose in a detached way? Because they will be most efficient when they work. And when they adopt this in day-to-day life, and if they're in a position to preach it to others, that's the best thing to do. On top of that, if they have their own organization, and if they can cultivate the principles of righteousness, as in right is earned, not given, and everything has to be measured true to the feeling and has to be worked towards the positive spirit of that organization, in the name of the organization, treating it with respect, which will be reciprocated by everyone with respect as well. So these are some of the things that one can do. And if someone has bigger influence, they can change the society as a whole. We have seen some countries that had tremendous success, small countries, came from a lot of poverty, had tremendous amount of success, became the best countries and models for rest of the world. You know what made them, what gave them such success? They followed righteous action, they followed a detached way of action.
Yeah.
And you can see this principle in many aspects. If you see all the kingdoms from the past, the rise of Roman Empire, there are principles of righteousness that have been followed and the concept of council and everything. And when they went through the phase of comforts and gave into attachments and greed, that caused the destruction as well.
Yeah.
And you also have seen the rise of Persian Empire, the rise of Egyptian, the rise of Western culture today has to do partly with the amount of righteousness that has been shown.
Yeah.
And the rise of Indus Valley civilization and a lot of civilizations from the past
Yeah.
are all based on incorporating what is right. When we follow what is right and cultivate that positive spirit in the people, what it essentially does is creates best future generations. When you create the best generation, future generation, you are ensuring that things will be better in the future than they are today.
Yeah.
If you don't cultivate that, you can be certain that the future generation will not be as good. Because imagine if a society is showing a lot of self-interest, that means they will be worried about their immediate comforts, which will make that system fail in the future. That is what we have been seeing as well in the world. Many societies, countries, cultures going through that cycle.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is, what does moving towards a more righteous system, what does that even look like? How do we even start?
So moving to a righteous system actually has a lot of benefits. When we start moving to a righteous system, that means everyone will start focusing on what has been done wrong so far as well. That will help them clear the karmic effects too. If you look at the way we work in an organization, you can apply the principles of righteousness. And if you use the principles of righteousness, you remember from the second podcast that we have done, there are so many benefits of following what is right. If you do everything in the name of the organization and treat everyone in the name of organization with respect, the organization will receive back respect as well. Now, in a proper righteous system, there is no self-interest. As we discussed, everything has to be done in a detached way. And when you promote that, the people that show self-serving nature, self-obsession, or self-centric views, those people will be called out, right for right and wrong for wrong. And it feels like a suffering for them because it is really suffering. They have to get off from that behavior. At the same time, it's a blessing in disguise. They're getting their karmas burned away faster. So this is one of the main advantage of righteous system. Wherever you establish righteousness, you're starting to burn away the bad sanskaras of the people and you are purifying them from the inside. Again, to repeat on in terms of what is a sanskara, sanskara essentially means whatever the impressions one has developed, bad or good, over time, by doing a certain type of actions, karma. And showing obsession towards something is also a sanskara. Showing self-obsession is also a sanskara. And burning that away is essential for them to realize their true self as well. You also remember another aspect that we discussed in our first and second podcast. Every human is limited in terms of what they can think. One can only think within the boundaries of what they feel they are. If they feel they are this body, this person, and they're limited to a set boundaries, then their thinking is also limited within those set boundaries. They cannot think beyond that. That's why the way of Krishna is, Krishna feels that he exists in everything. He is this universe itself. That way of thought process opens up knowledge that is not available for people who define themselves within a set boundaries. Yeah. So going back to your question, right? Like following a righteous system helps the society as a whole. It purifies everything from inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to also add to that, one thing you said was burning others' karmas and calling out what is right for right and wrong for wrong. One way that people can do that immediately after this podcast is when they see something that is being done wrong, actually calling that out. It doesn't happen very often now because it's very easy to be passive. But I think that's a very important thing that I'm learning from this session.
It goes way more than calling it out. Calling it out also has some negative effects, right? Like if you call someone out, even if they're wrong, they will not take it easily. As a result, you have to go through that
Backfire.
suffering.
Yeah.
And that's one way of burning out the karma. So the best way is always the most efficient way, the righteous way. What is the most efficient way of calling anything out?
In the most loving, most compassionate way.
Yeah, the most loving, the most compassionate is the most preferred way. Or use a third person perspective to explain the scenario in a different approach. follow a constructive speech. And for that to happen, one has to work on themselves from the inside out. When one works and focuses inward, they excel outward as well. And if you have seen spirituality is all about focusing inward, whereas the materialistic world is all about focusing outward. So the way of spirituality is more powerful compared to the way of material aspects that we see in today's day and time. Because when he who understands his true self, when he focuses on inside and fixes himself, he attracts the same thing as well. That's a law of nature. What we express is what we attract. From that point of view, he will also attain good luck too. Let's say if one shows love and compassion, to your point, even with a bad person, those persons will be shown love and compassion back. By the good people at least, if not by the bad people. But the bad people will not be as mad as if they are being confronted. Right?
But that doesn't mean let other people take advantage of you either.
What do you mean by taking advantage there?
Like, for example, in this scenario where there's a good person with a bad person, and the good person is showing love and compassion towards the bad person will naturally want to take advantage of the good person. But the good person should also be detached and think from the third person and know the bad person for who they are and know when to step away, know when to protect themselves as well.
Yeah, again, it goes back to the podcast that we did on karma, right? Like,
Yes.
one has to be in the know of they're doing good or bad. And understanding, even if you show a good behavior, you're most likely to attract bad people as well. And judging right for right and wrong for wrong on those lines is important. And protecting oneself is also dharma or righteousness.
Yeah.
You are given this body, this vessel. For you to achieve your purpose, you have to protect that vessel too.
Yeah. So, should we do a quick recap on what we talked about today? We talked about the equality system and how it allows for unrighteous behavior to thrive and be rewarded because there is no reward for being more righteous. And we are trying to get more towards the righteous system, which allows for righteous behavior to be the ideal, to be the model, and to be rewarded. And in such a place, you would also need to be auto-corrected with a council, right? You need a council to make sure that this system continues to be righteous. What else did we talk about?
And we spoke a little bit about like how the righteousness can be applied in each aspect of life. And we also spoke about kingdoms a little bit and how the old righteous systems were. We spoke a little bit about how the cycle of righteous and unrighteousness worked in the ages of survival and comfort.
Yes.
During the times of survival, we have been the most righteous to evolve. And during the time of comforts, we have given into attachments and bias, which led to destruction. And that cycle has been continuing. And we were hoping this podcast will change some of those things.
Yes. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment or DM us. We read everything. Like, comment, subscribe.
That's the right thing to do. Sharing the right information is good karma.